Good. Hello. I can see myself, but as I mentioned before, that's my right arm, and on the screen it's on my left side. That's my left arm, but on the screen it's the right side. Um, let's see. I was just listening to some Swami Kriyananda talking, and he's quite funny, really, because he was running the whole self-realization fellowship after Paramahansa Yogananda sort of that day dropped down on the side during the banquet. For the Prime Minister of India or the Ambassador of India, and Swami Kriyananda was running it all. But his problem was that he was an Anglican, and so I'll relate a story about the Anglican Church and Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan's one of the biggest, let's say, con men the world has ever seen. There was a Anglican church, St. Augustine's Church, opposite more or less where Phil Lawson lived, but that was before any contact with state government education curriculum. The state government education curriculum, I believe, was run by someone named Hugh Hudson or Hugh Hefner Hudson. And some of the books they made us study, say, in high school, had been purposefully written to include certain sort of like details about Adelaide and places here. And I really can't figure out why. But one of the things like that booked a guy who killed John Lennon, the guy who spent 2 years getting married to a Japanese girl and drinking and taking drugs and, ranting and raving and all the rest of it. Catcher in the Rye. Well, there's one part in Catcher in the Rye where it's now I've just forgotten. I had a problem when I lived at St. Peter's because people would come in and take astrological charms that were about that big, made of silver, from Hindu Bhagwan Soham. In London, if you want to look at it in a Christian way, the wise men from the East. And they'd take these little silver astrological charms, which were supposedly created with one person in mind only. No general thing, no anything. So what happened? There was this character who said that they killed John Lennon because of her, and now 50 years later, the people who killed John Lennon because of her have a German Lutheran thing that John Lennon wrote about in 1966 called Elsie Reich. As in, you probably don't know, but they had something in Germany called the Third Reich, and it was the killing machine that went everywhere, and they filmed them everywhere, and they would kill people left, right, and center, and have cameras everywhere. And the propaganda minister, though, was named Rudolf Hess, and anyway, to cut a long story short, they want you to believe that Elsie Reich, Elsie, that's my initials, LC or MLC, and they want you to believe I just forgot what I was thinking. But the date of the death was my birthday, and I don't believe that's. I believe that's what they call false. Thou shalt not bear false witness. The Bible says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness," and so Elsie Reich is bearing false witness to me. So anyway, once John Lennon got killed, the girl who said that, it was her fault that it happened, and oh Jesus, I'm so sorry. I mean, I'm upset. I don't know what to do, she said, because you can't do that, Samantha. I don't want you to do that if it's all right with you. So I took her to a place on Goodwood Road that's on the way to the cemetery where the new cemetery was. Place there, 1947, a panorama in an empty field. And I just now have, there was a street there with a laundromat on the corner, and the street name was the key name in the book. The guy who killed him, Mark David Chapman, quoted and justified killing John Lennon by saying, "You catcher in the rye, I'm the catcher in the rye." And the central main key point was the name of that street was in that book. And opposite there was a new building that wasn't there, say, before John Kennedy got killed. And it was Christadelphian. It wasn't there before John Kennedy got killed. But what happened was I finally found out what these astrological charms had, isn't it? And it was just hilarious. And it was really serious. It was just really serious because the state police had tried to murder me 23 times already. Yeah, you understand? They control the media, the world media. So what happened? And it definitely was Samantha's fault. So what happened was I washed some clothes and put them in the dryer and forgot to remove a personalized astrological charm. This one had a general purpose. If you want to think about it, you could think, it's like the Pope giving a general audience, where nobody listens or gains anything from it, but he does charm his audience, whereas the charm is an astrological charm, and it's got something to do with date and time of birth, place of birth, and things, where the planets are. And the wise men in the East came along with that. Anyway, I don't want to be facetious. So just to put it quickly, these silver charms, similar to what's described in the Bible, contained a scroll that was wound up, and inside the scroll was a small silver spring, let's call it a spring, a spiral, and some wax. And the wax was either red for boys or men and pink for girls. That guy called L. Ron Hubbard, with his modern science and mental health, really screwed things up because he talked about some pink thing, and it's not a charm, astrological charm. But I found out that day what was in them, very biblical. You might say very biblical. So what was that all about? Let me think. The Anglican Church. Now, Swami Kriyananda said that he was an Anglican, and the Catholics don't give you a chalice of wine at communion, but the Anglicans do. And I don't know whether he's bearing false witness or not. But he tells a good story. And I remember saying to Augustine, you probably remember saying to Augustine, because, Bob Dylan, who assumed parts of my identity, would do a song about St. Augustine's church on Unley Road, opposite where Phil Lawson lived, on Thomas Street. And they want you to think that there's something called the Doubting Thomas from biblical times. But what St. Augustine Church had was no pews, no wine, no altar, no quote-unquote worship, just a large trampoline. And I guess it was there because there were a lot of tramps in the area who'd go to some Catholic place near South Terrace for a meal, and they'd congregate there, and there'd be a white statue outside. And the same statue was used at that boys' school, and those boys were tramps. And my father actually got the exact same statue later on and placed it in his living room. And the strange thing was with him, he did something I'd never seen him do before, which was get some booze, open it up, and leave it there and never touch it. He didn't drink. Now, that's what my catcher, Peter Treadway, used to do. He'd drink sherry, or he'd drink, what else? He'd drink Jane Kennet, or blah, blah, blah. So Swami Kriyananda was an Anglican, and Bob Dylan, he came as a thief, and he did a song about the Anglican church there, because he doesn't like people being spiritual in any way. And he sure didn't like the prayers for peace, God incarnate, Hindu astrologer. So that's the sum total of the story. CBS is, one of the hugest conglomerates of media in the world, but at least the state police don't control everything they do. Whereas here, Channel 7 boasts about, the state police control the media and we control them. And Rupert Murdoch did it all. Okay, so bye-bye. Catcher in the Rye. I'll just finish there. So I have to leave town. And I will. I was thinking of going to see Sarah, but I don't know, Bob Dylan had this friend called Sarah, and so I don't know much about it, but she just recently told me or informed me that she's married with 3 kids, and that's and that was so funny because I can't imagine. I've met some of the boys or one of the boys that she had a relationship with, and it was funny because he was like a white Anglican Saxon, and he looked just like this guy I met, who I asked to get some prayers for peace for, who had cancer, leukemia, and had 2 months left to live. And they both looked identical, but the one who was going to die in 2 months wasn't the white one. He was a different sort of aura, a different sort of look, but almost physically identical to each other. And that was the funny thing about the white guy who was saying, "Oh yeah, I was Sarah's boyfriend," and "Oh yeah, I was Sarah's boyfriend," and I said, "Oh yeah, really? Did you score or anything happen or anything at all? Did you have food with her or anything?" "Yeah, I was Sarah's boyfriend. I was Sarah's boyfriend." So I left, and that's the end of the story. And if he wasn't bearing false witness, that guy with 2 months left to live with leukemia, who's got a month of prayers for peace, passed away about 2 months later. But that's got nothing to do with UK royals or the worship one must do to the state government via their legal system. And the legal system was interesting, as in 72, I did a survey at 4 universities and found that heroin, the hard drugs, were almost exclusively the province of law students and faculty. And so the results all got stolen. And Sarah, she claims, they've hauled her up in front of a Labor Party government or Liberal Party government for hearings, and she's got to talk about this or that, or 1 minute she says one thing, and then, I don't know what's wrong with her, but there's definitely something wrong with her. It's probably due to the fact that nobody loved her, and that, in a sense, Bob Dylan stole her identity. Like, for example, that thing they did, Bob Dylan, the basement tapes. I used to go to Sandy's basement and we'd write poetry together. And the thing about Sandy is the show business people stole her identity and put her in a show business thing called Grease, because the uncle of the Minister of Education put grease on a train track and derailed it. And it was so funny because nobody died. He was a pacifist, you see, at the time. So good night and cheerio. And so Swami Kriyananda was an Anglican, and I can't stand him. But I'll tell you something. I won't tell you something. I will tell you something. I anonymously left Swami Kriyananda's 40 steps or 14 steps to perfect joy in the local neighborhood watchman's front yard. And he changed his number plate to Joy 40 or Joy 14, I forget which, but it was obvious he had decided that I'm it. I'm Joy 40. And his daughter opened up a yoga studio on Norwood Parade. And I had a talk to her one day, and she was saying, "Oh, yeah, I used to go down Henley Beach Road to Henley Beach, and I could see she was, what's it called, false witness again." So I avoided having anything to do with them. But they do a fair amount of business, and my guess is they don't know anything about yoga. And I don't think Swami Kriyananda knew very much about yoga. But he did tell sort of funny stories that you could think about and play around with in your mind. Yeah, okay, well, that's about all. I think it's pretty bad what... no, I'm not going to comment about it. I was speaking to someone who was phoned me from Israel the other day, And the only thing that really sort of struck a chord in my head was she did say that there was a ghetto in Zhytomyr, which was where my mother got enslaved and taken to Germany, where she lost her hair, and they treated her really kindly because they're such good people, the Nazis. And there are lots of Germans and Nazis here, and Third Reich is opposite me now, and so on and so on. So I won't say anything else, but I'm leaving town. I can't go and see Sarah because she's married with 3 kids, and I didn't know that, but the poor guy who was Sarah's boyfriend, he still fondly remembers 40 years later, yes, I was Sarah's boyfriend. But they did haul her up before various government things and get her to testify about how terrible life is here in this. I mean, how it's really terrible that some children get abused. And I guess the reason they did that is because the SRF, which Donald Walters was the controller of until they threw him out, the first lesson is about awake my children. And the yoga was saying that your body, your muscles are your children. And so what they did is immediately Labor Party stopped me even walking down the road, arranged for Sarah to show up at a certain place. She then one day took me into town. We sat up all night together. The only thing she could say is maybe the guru will phone tonight. And what it came down to was the boyfriend, who was her boyfriend. He didn't sort of say, do you want to get married or something? Because, she would often say that she was, one of the chosen ones. And, she was probably an Anglican. She could have been a Catholic, or for all I know, or not a Methodist, though. Definitely not a Methodist. And her father was like the English professor. And I had a funny realization today where he was talking about cults. And one of the things about the self-realization fellowship guru is he created Playboy magazine to sort of to show naked women. And some of them were film stars, and like there was one film star called Jane Mansfield. And back in the 60s, that was. And I knew where Mansfield Street was. And the thing about Woody Allen, for example, some I don't know, terrorists or something stole my collection of Woody Allen movies. And the first one was called Casino Royale, about Royale Street, which was more or less directly opposite the house. But, other people moved in and they saw various things and did terrorist acts in USA and overseas. And the Labor Party won the election. It was in power here all through the 60s. In power. All through the 60s and 70s, and it was amazing, Labor, wow, compulsory voting too. So goodbye, and so I can't go and see Sarah. Okay, so cheerio and good luck and goodbye.